Jamal adjusted the straps of his backpack as he stepped through the front doors of Oak Ridge High. The hum of conversation around him barely dipped, but he felt it. The shift, the curious glances, the hushed whispers. He had walked into classrooms like this before, places where his presence was tolerated, not welcomed. It didn't matter. He was here to learn, to excel. A teacher standing by the lockers gave him a polite but hesitant nod, the kind that said, "We have to say we're inclusive, but we don't really know what to do with you." A few students glanced up as he passed, their expressions ranging from disinterest to mild curiosity. Jamal ignored them. He was used to being the only black student in the room. His acceptance into Oak Ridge had been through the school's new diversity initiative. The district had paraded it as progress, but Jamal knew better. He could hear the undertone in the way some teachers spoke to him, the way students looked at him like he was an experiment. Let's see if he can really keep up here. He stepped into his first period classroom and found a seat near the middle. His mother had told him to sit in the front, to make them see him, but Jamal knew better than to draw too much attention too soon. The last thing he needed was to stand out any more than he already did. The teacher, Mrs. Harper, stood at the front of the room, her posture straight, her tone sharp as she called out names from the roster. Thomas Andrews, here. Rebecca Collins, present. The list continued, her voice crisp and efficient until suddenly there was a pause. Jamal looked up. Mrs. Harper's eyes flickered over the page for a brief moment before she moved on. Logan White. Here. Jamal blinked. His name was right there. He knew it was. He had watched her scan past it. He waited, thinking maybe she had just made a mistake. Maybe she would come back to it. But the roll call ended, and she set the clipboard. Down. Jamal lifted his hand. Mrs. Harper, you skipped my name. She barely looked at him. Oh, she said as if it was an afterthought. Well, you know who you are. A few quiet chuckles rippled through the class. Jamal felt his stomach tighten. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to keep his face neutral. It's Jamal. Jamal Carter, Mrs. Harper gave a thin smile. All right then, let's begin. Jamal sat back, fingers curling into fists beneath his desk. He caught a glimpse of Mia, the girl who had been friendly to him during orientation. She shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. No one did. The next day it happened again, and the day after that. Mrs. Harper would point at him if he raised his hand. She would say, "Yes, you." If he answered a question, she would nod, but never acknowledge him by name. If another student responded, she would say, "Good point, Logan," or "Nice answer, Rebecca." Jamal sat through it all, his frustration building. His jaw clenched so tight it ached. He could hear his father's voice in his head, the same words he had heard all his life. You have to be twice as good to get half the respect. At dinner, he pushed his food around his plate, barely touching it. His mother, Angela Carter, noticed immediately. Something happened at school? She asked, setting down her fork. Jamal hesitated. He could lie, say it was fine, but the truth sat heavy in his chest. She won't say my name, Mom. Not once. Angela's expression hardened. Who? Mrs. Harper, Jamal muttered. She just skips over it, calls me you or him. His father sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I had a teacher like that once, he said. They know what they're doing. It's about power. Jamal looked up. What did you do? His father gave him a small, knowing smile. I made sure they had no choice but to say it. Angela folded her arms. We could go to the school, file a complaint. Jamal shook his head. And what? Give them a reason. To paint me as a troublemaker. His mother exhaled, her frustration evident. So what are you going to do? Jamal pushed his plate away and leaned back in his chair. I won't just make her say my name. I'll make sure she has to respect it. Jamal sat upright in his seat, eyes locked on Mrs. Harper as she called roll. His name was coming up, he knew. His heartbeat quickened, but his face remained still, unreadable. Thomas Andrews. Here. Rebecca Collins. Present. She reached the point where his name should have been. He could almost hear it on the tip of her tongue. But then, like clockwork, she skipped over it. Jamal let out a slow breath. He had expected this. He raised his hand, voice steady. "Mrs. Harper, you skipped my name." She didn't look up from the roster. "Oh, did I?" A few students exchanged glances. A couple of them whispered under their breath. Jamal didn't flinch. "Yes, ma'am. It's Jamal. Jamal Carter, Mrs." Harper's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "All right then, moving on." Jamal clenched his fists under the desk, but he didn't argue. He had learned by now that pushing back directly wouldn't get him anywhere. He needed another strategy. The next day, he made sure to participate in class. Every question she asked, his hand shot up before anyone else. If she wanted to pretend he was invisible, he would make himself impossible to ignore. Can anyone tell me the theme of this passage? Jamal's hand went up first. Mrs. Harper's eyes flickered toward him but moved past him quickly. "Logan?" Jamal exhaled through his nose as Logan mumbled through a response. A few minutes later, she asked another question. Jamal's hand shot up again. Her jaw tightened. She scanned the room, looking for anyone else. Silence. She sighed. "Yes, you." Jamal sat forward. "It's Jamal." She nodded stiffly. "Yes, you." He let a small smirk tug at the corner of his lips. "I disagree with Logan's answer. The real theme is resilience. The main character faces discrimination but continues to push forward." Mrs. Harper's eye twitched, but she said nothing. The class was beginning to catch on. Mia, sitting 2 seats away, started repeating his name deliberately whenever he spoke. "I agree with Jamal," she would say pointedly. After a while, other students started doing the same. Some because they genuinely supported him. Others simply because they found Mrs. Harper's avoidance amusing. But she refused to give in. The cycle continued for weeks. Then came the essay. When Mrs. Harper assigned a paper on literary themes, Jamal saw an opportunity. He wrote about racial erasure and its consequences, pouring his thoughts onto the page. When the papers were returned, his had a bright red B at the top. Jamal frowned, flipping through the pages. No significant mistakes, no corrections in the margins, just the vague, dismissive comment at the bottom. Off topic. Stay focused on the text. His blood boiled. He stood up, walking straight to Mrs. Harper's desk. "Can you explain why I got a B?" She barely looked up. "It didn't follow the prompt, Jamal. It analyzed theme," he argued. "Just like you asked." Mrs. Harper smirked slightly. "Stick to the assignment next time." Jamal gritted, his teeth feeling the weight of every injustice, every dismissal. He met her eyes. "You can mark my words. This won't be the last time you see my name." That night, he sat at his desk, staring at the essay contest flyer in his hands. National Essay Competition. Social Issues in Modern Education. He picked up his pen. If she wouldn't acknowledge him in class, the world would. The news spread through Oak Ridge High like wildfire. The video had gone viral. Mrs. Harper standing in front of the class, skipping over Jamal's name as if it didn't exist. Again and again. The comments beneath the post were a mix of outrage and disbelief. "This is disgusting. She's doing it on purpose. How is this happening in 2024? Say his name." By the next morning, the school was in damage control mode. The principal's voice crackled over the intercom. "All staff are required to report to an emergency meeting immediately. Attendance is mandatory." Mrs. Harper sat at the long table in the teacher's lounge, arms folded, her lips pressed into a thin line. Around her, murmurs of unease filled the room. The principal, his face drawn with exhaustion, cleared his throat. "This school is under fire. We have parents, community, leaders, and media outlets demanding accountability. Mrs. Harper, do you have anything to say for yourself?" She lifted her chin. "I didn't do anything wrong." A younger teacher scoffed under his breath. "You really expect us to believe that skipping his name every single day was an accident?" Mrs. Harper's jaw tightened. "I struggle with certain names. It's not my fault he made this into an issue." The principal exhaled sharply. "This isn't just an issue anymore. It's national news. And it's not just about you. It's about all of us." A tense silence followed. Outside, the school. A reporter stood on the front steps, microphone in hand. We're here at Oak Ridge High, where students and parents are demanding action after a teacher was caught repeatedly refusing to acknowledge a black student by name. We've reached out to the school for comment. Jamal watched from home, his arms crossed. His mother sat beside him, her phone buzzing with calls. This is getting big, she said. A journalist wants to interview you. Jamal hesitated. I don't know, Mom. What if it just makes things worse? She placed a hand on his shoulder. Your story is already being told. Make sure you're the one telling it. Later that afternoon, the principal made an announcement. To address recent concerns, Oak Ridge High will be implementing a mandatory anti-discrimination training for all faculty members. In the teacher's lounge, Mrs. Harper scoffed. You have got to be kidding me. Mandatory, the principal repeated, giving her a pointed look. The news reached the students quickly. Some cheered, some shrugged. Others weren't so sure. Do you think it's real change? Mia asked as she caught up with Jamal in the hallway. Jamal shook his head. I think it's a PR stunt. She sighed. So what now? He smirked. We keep the pressure on. The tension in the school was palpable. Some students openly supported Jamal, praising him for standing up. Others whispered about Mrs. Harper being unfairly targeted. Arguments broke out in the cafeteria, in the hallways, in classrooms. Change was coming. But not everyone wanted it. A week later, the school sent out an official invitation, academic awards ceremony, honoring excellence in education. Jamal reread the email, a slow grin forming on his face. His essay had won first place in the national competition. The school was hosting an event to celebrate him. And Mrs. Harper? She was assigned to introduce him. Jamal showed the email to his mother. You think she'll actually say it? Angela smiled knowingly. Oh, she'll have to. The night of the ceremony, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Parents, teachers, students, all waiting. Mrs. Harper stood behind the podium, her fingers curled around the microphone. She scanned the crowd, her expression unreadable. Her gaze flickered to Jamal, who sat in the front row, back straight, eyes locked on her. The room fell silent. She hesitated. The weight of it, the defiance she had clung to for so long, now sat heavy on her chest. She cleared her throat. Please welcome Jamal Carter. For the first time, she said his name. No excuse, no avoidance. The audience clapped. Some students cheered, but Jamal only heard one thing, his victory, loud and clear. He rose from his seat, adjusting his tie. As he walked onto the stage, he passed Mrs. Harper. She wouldn't meet his eyes. He took the microphone, turned toward the audience, and paused. Then, with steady conviction, he spoke. It's just a name, but it means everything. The crowd erupted. Applause thundered through the room, echoing through the walls. Mrs. Harper took a slow step back, watching as the student she had tried to erase stood before everyone. Undeniable, unshaken. Jamal met her gaze, and for the first time she looked small. And he had never stood taller. The headlines didn't disappear overnight. The video, the backlash, the growing demands for change, it all clung to Oak Ridge High like a permanent stain. Parents flooded school board meetings, their voices rising in frustration. This school has a problem, and it's been swept under the rug for too long. You called this an isolated incident, but how many more are being ignored? The administration scrambled. A new diversity committee was formed, guidelines were rewritten, and training sessions were scheduled. But for many, it felt like nothing more than an attempt to salvage the school's reputation. In the hallways, the shift was obvious. Teachers watched their words carefully, aware that one wrong comment could turn into the next viral moment. Students whispered when Mrs. Harper walked past, their eyes filled with something she had never encountered before: doubt. For years, she had controlled her classroom with quiet authority, unchallenged and unbothered. But now, every lecture, every glance, every small action was met with scrutiny. She could feel it pressing down on her, suffocating. At the end of one class, a student lingered behind. Why did you do it? The voice was quiet but firm. Mrs. Harper turned, surprised. It was Mia. Excuse me, Mia met her gaze without flinching. Why wouldn't you say his name? Mrs. Harper stiffened. I don't have to explain myself to you. Mia tilted her head. I think you do, because the whole school is watching now. For the first time, Mrs. Harper didn't have an answer. The next morning, an email circulated. Effective immediately, Mrs. Harper will be retiring at the end of the semester. The school didn't make a grand announcement. No farewell speech, no celebration. Just a quiet exit for a woman whose legacy had crumbled beneath the weight of her own choices. Jamal sat at the kitchen table, staring at the acceptance letter in his hands. Full scholarship, prestigious university. It was everything he had worked for. His mother beamed, pride radiating from her. You earned this. No one can take that away from you. His father nodded. This is bigger than just one teacher, one school. You showed them what excellence looks like when they tried to deny it. Jamal exhaled slowly, absorbing the weight of their words. At school, students still whispered about him, but it was different now. It wasn't about pity. It wasn't about controversy. It was about respect. A freshman approached him at his locker. Hey, I just wanted to say, what you did, it, mattered. Jamal nodded, a small smile forming. It wasn't just for me. His story had reached beyond Oak Ridge. Other students in other schools began speaking up. Teachers started reevaluating their own biases. On his last day, he walked through the halls one final time. His head high, Mrs. Harper stood near her classroom, packing up the last of her things. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Then, with stiff reluctance, she muttered, Good luck, sir. Jamal didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He simply nodded, turned, and walked away, victorious.